Hey all, it's Nyoike. I'm gonna give some basic input on how I did my Nautilus Sig. The part you aren't gonna see in this video is the initial setup where I got my file started and put the picture on. But not really missing much, just a little bit here and there. Okay, so the first thing I did was duplicated layer, then I went into Topaz Clean and tried to kind of clean up the image a little more, give it a little smoother appearance. I ended up just going with crisp style and turned down the opacity, and because basically it got a little over crisp, but it still looks good with some. So, you know, basic thing with Topaz, use it, but then kind of bring the opacity down, because it can very easily get overdone. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is, first of all, rasterize the layer so we can monkey with it and change the opacity easily. Then we are going to duplicate again and basically try and give it a little bit of a different look using Topaz Adjust. My usual sets are either the Brilliant Cold or Brilliant Warm. They just give it a more natural look to it. I then normally do Photo Pop or Color Pop. Then I go to the Vibrant collections. I normally use Spicify, but I change the opacity because it goes a little overboard if you have it all the way up. For generally about 60 to 80 is where you're going to want it. Then for the HDR, I normally use one of the smooth pops, and that's about it. It ends up giving it a much more fancy, I guess, look to it, and just makes it way different. The next thing we're going to end up doing is starting to add some effects. I'm going to use my main Nebula picture, which just gives it more particles, gives it the little sparkles everywhere, and just looks really nice. I rasterize it, give it a black and white effect, change it to color dodge, and then set it to use Topaz. It makes it much easier to see where everything is. It kind of gives it more of a sparkly effect. Then I just take the basically the brush tool and layer mask and remove it all off the render, and it adds a lot to the background. If stuff gets too bright, then you turn the opacity down on the brush and get that area until it's about the right brightness, and it just adds a lot to the background and looks very nice. Normally I only do this once, but I will occasionally do multiple times. Sometimes I try new light effects. This time it was just too difficult to decide on which way to position it, so I didn't end up actually using it. The thing I've been trying to get into more of is using more just plain old effects. It just accentuates more of what you want to accentuate. So for here right now, I'm looking at all my different effects I have. I have a lot, and I'm trying to decide which to use, and also apparently texting. So it takes a little bit here now, but basically you just use the effects, set it to color dodge, generally black and white, unless the color suits it, and it kind of gives it a bit of a radial effect, or linear if you have it set up that way. Just really accentuates that area. So like for here, I have it accentuating the hand. By having it just give some sparks off of his hand. And then you just move it around how you want it. and it just looks really nice, accentuates it. You know, erase anything you don't want on there with the layer mask, and do that as many times as you want. It just adds a lot to it. Just looks really nice. So here I'm adding another one, and I'm going to have this one over his shoulder. And again, you know, position it how you want it, get it set up that way, set it to color dodge, black and white, erase anything that's over the render, make sure you're using a soft brush to kind of get that glowing effect around him, and just anything that gets too bright, erase it a little bit at least, and it just really adds a lot to the background again. After you get it set up how you want it, you know, you can keep doing this as many times as you want. You can basically make your own background if you want with them, but normally you just do it a couple times just to accentuate the main things you want, and ends up adding a lot to it. Then after you get the effects you want, you know, do a little fine tuning, mess around with it a little, make sure you got it exactly how you want it. You know, don't want to have it be one way when you can just monkey for another couple seconds and have it look a lot better. So there's just so many things to monkey with for effects. And the next part is the text, which I almost always have issues with. This one I'm actually fairly pleased with. The main issue I had was finding a font. I know I wanted it to say Into the Deep. I knew where I wanted to have it. I wanted to have it on the line of the rule of thirds, and I could fit it there, but I could not find a text I wanted to use. So I was looking through my text, trying to find one that I really liked and would fit it. So I kept going and going and going, and eventually I found one I did like. It's called Poplar Standard. I'm not sure if I downloaded it or if it comes with Windows. I can't remember. I'll try and provide it in the zip. But then I positioned it right there on the rule of thirds. Thought it looked really nice. Checked, made sure it all looked good from the normal zoom. Added drop shadow. I don't know why, but I like having the shadow going off to the bottom left side instead of bottom right. Then I started monkeying with the coloring. Coloring, I'm not normally good with for text. Normally I either blend it in too much or not enough. This time I ended up doing a really good job because I did something different. I used a gradient on it. So I took the brightest color from where it started to the darkest color where it ended, started a clipping mask, and basically tried the gradient a couple times till I found one that looked pretty well blended, but not too blended. It ended up looking really nice and just perfect blending in my opinion. So after I got my main text on there, I decided I want to have Nyoike on there. So I'm like, well, I can put it right above there. That should work. Problem was that the text, or the font I was using, when it got to the size I wanted, you could barely read it. So I'm like, I might try and put this on a shoulder. So I'm going through looking for a font that would look good on a shoulder. Eventually find one, and it's called Same but Different. I'll try and provide this as well. And it just looked really nice, kind of like it would have been scratched into metal plate type thing. So I did some transforming, ended up turning it a little, using perspective to kind of give it more of the looked like it was actually the right perspective for it. and turn the opacity down a little bit. Sometimes, if you want this effect, you have to give inner shadow, drop shadow, stuff like that, or else it just blends in too much or not enough. For this though, it blended in just right, in my opinion, with slight lowering of the opacity. It just looks like it was inscribed right onto the plate. So got that looking nice. Then thought everything was looking really nice. Main thing it needed though, little fine tuning here and there. I thought the upper right corner seemed like it was faded a little much, so I tried to fix that a little. Got it looking better. Then thought maybe nah, try erasing a little more, but then it was too dark. Added more again. Left it that way. That looks pretty decent. Then I ended up making a new layer and doing a 2-pixel border all the way around. Just went with black. Just basic, just gives it more of a fine, crisp, finished image. Then I saved it as a PSD first, to make sure I kept all of my information, then as a PNG, and that's about it. Thanks for watching.